Well, some of you know that I have a birthday coming up in December. I'm going to be 54 years old, and my 50s have been pretty amazing so far. And I have to say that so much of that has to do with serving as your pastor. In my 50s, I certainly am living my best life ever. But my 50s have also brought me things like gray hair and some extra pounds. And just recently, this happened. See, I think they make me look smarter, but Greg said I look like Mr. Magoo. No, I started wearing these readers recently. And when I first put them on, I was astounded. I was amazed at how clearly I could see everything. And it truly was like seeing with new eyes. And of course, I share this with you today because that's what today's gospel reading, the blind man, the beggar Bartimaeus, is able to see with new eyes. That's our theme for today. Now, whenever we hear about sight in the Bible, it's not talking about physical seeing. It's talking about spiritual seeing, spiritual understanding. So, for example, in Mark chapter 8, Jesus says to the disciples, "You have eyes, but you do not see." And what he meant was, you lack spiritual sight. You lack spiritual understanding. Another example would be the hymn that so many of you love, Amazing Grace. We sing in that song, "I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see." Now, of course, when we sing that line, we're not saying we used to be physically blind, and now we can physically see. We're saying that we once were spiritually blind, but now we're seeing the world with new eyes. We have new vision, new insight. So Bartimaeus, the blind man in today's gospel, was blind, but now he sees. He has experienced a miraculous healing of vision. Now, whenever we have these healing stories or miracle stories on Sundays, people often ask me, "Pastor Sal, are we to take them literally? Did these stories really happen? Are they actual history?" And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I do know for sure. I know that I myself have experienced miracles in my own life. I've shared some of them with you on Sundays. And I also know for sure that nothing is impossible with God. But I also know from my study of Scripture that the Bible stories were not meant to be understood literally. They were meant to be understood symbolically. And I know that reading the Bible at the literal surface level, just taking it at face value, is the lowest level of meaning. Now, all that said, the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter whether you take this story literally or symbolically. It doesn't, because it points to the same spiritual principle, the same spiritual truth. And that truth is that you have within you the power to see with new eyes. You have the power to see new things, new visions, have new insights, new understanding, to grow in your spiritual sight. You have the power to do that. Now, in this week's epistle, our church email newsletter, I shared a quote from the 20th century writer Anais Nin, who said, "We do not see things as they are. We see things as we are." So, for example, there are Christians in America today who see Jesus as a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes, with the American flag behind him. That's not who Jesus was. But we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. Now, although Aniasinin wrote that in her book, she was actually quoting from the Talmud. That quote is in the Talmud. The Talmud is the ancient Jewish writing, the ancient Jewish scripture. And I think it's important, in light of what happened yesterday in the synagogue in Pittsburgh, that we acknowledge and remember that Jesus, our master teacher, was Jewish. Jesus was a devout Jew. He loved being Jewish. Judaism was Jesus' religion. So for someone to proclaim that they are followers of the way of Jesus and then say that they hate Jewish people just doesn't make sense. So the Talmud says we don't see things the way they are, we see things the way we are. So for example, if you are a person who lives in fear and worry, if you think the world is a scary place and that people can't be trusted and that everybody's out to get you, then that's what you will see. Because you're looking through the lens of fear and separation. This week, we all saw the same images on TV. We saw the images of the caravan of people walking from Central America. And although we all watched the same images, we saw different things. Some Americans watched those images on TV, and they saw criminals and rapists and gang members and bad hombres who are going to be bringing violence and crime into our country. And other people saw those same images and their hearts broke because they saw young families, mothers with little children in great distress who are walking thousands of miles on foot to escape violence and persecution. How can we look at the same images and see two completely different things? Because we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And so my question for you this morning is, how do you view the world? What lens are you looking through? Are you looking through the lens of fear and separation? Or are you looking through the lens of love and oneness? Some of those Christians who are looking at those images and seeing criminals, in a few weeks, those very same Christians are going to be setting up nativity sets in their homes. When you set up a nativity set, do you know what that image is showing? It's showing dark-skinned Middle Eastern people, a refugee family who was escaping their homeland. They were fleeing from persecution and violence, so there would be a safe place for their baby to be born. And yet when Christians look on TV and see those images of those people, they don't see Joseph and Mary and Jesus. They see murderers and criminals and gang members. Because we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. We also heard on the news this week that the current administration announced that they are seeking to define someone's gender as either male or female and unchangeable from birth. And that would completely eliminate and erase civil rights protections for transgender people. If you get our epistle newsletter, you see the statement I shared from our UCC national leadership, who has denounced this erasure of transgender people based on fear. Because that's what it is. It's fear. There are people in this country who are scared of transgender people. They're going to come into your bathroom. They're going to harm your children. They're looking through the lens of fear. But the truth of the matter is that transgender people have existed in every time, every country, and every culture. And in some of those cultures, transgender people are revered and respected. Jesus purposely hung around with people of his day who were the outcasts. He preferred their company because Jesus saw through the eyes of love and oneness. He didn't see through the eyes of fear and separation. So the good news of today's gospel is that you have the power within you to see the same way Jesus did. You do. You can transform your sight from looking through the lens of fear through looking through the lens of love. How do you do that? Well, our native ancestors, they would send their young people out on what they called a vision quest. And what they would do is the young person would have to go out into the wilderness alone, all by themselves, so that they could return to the tribe with new eyes, new insights, new understanding. Jesus himself went on a vision quest. He spent 40 days and 40 nights alone in the desert, where he wrestled with the demons of fear and separation so that he could cast them from his sight. So, my friends, if you're living in fear and separation, you can cast those demons from your sight. Go on a vision quest so that you can see more clearly, love more dearly, and follow more nearly the way of Jesus. Now, you don't have to go out into the wilderness or out into the desert. You can have a vision quest each and every time you enter into prayer and meditation. Because that's what we're doing in prayer and meditation. We're closing our physical eyes, the eyes that see the way the world sees, and we're lifting up our eyes to see from a higher perspective, to see people and situations the way God sees them. Now, our brothers and sisters of the Eastern faith traditions, Buddhism and Hinduism, they speak of the third eye. You may have seen statues of Buddha with a dot between his forehead. You may have Hindu friends who wear a bindu between their eyebrows. That symbolizes the third eye, the eye that sees beyond what the human eyes see, the eyes that see how God sees. Jesus and Buddha and all of the world's faith teachers are sometimes referred to as seers, S-E-E-R-S, seers, because they were able to see beyond the human eyes, to see the world the way God sees, to see people and situations the way God sees. The good news of today's gospel is that you can see this way too, but you're responsible for your own healing. As we heard in our words of integration and guidance this morning, every single time there's a healing in the Bible, Jesus never takes credit for it. Not one time. He always says to the person, your belief made you well. Your belief made you whole. It's all about your belief. If you believe the world is a scary place and the people who look differently from you can't be trusted, that's what you're going to see. But if you believe that God is love, and then that love and light is in every single person, regardless of their gender identity, their country of origin, then that's what you'll see. You'll see love and oneness. But you're responsible for your own healing. So in this week leading up to the time that we all vote, I'm wearing my button again that says our faith, our vote. Don't vote in fear of one another. Vote because you have love for one another. You've got to move from fear and separation to faith and oneness. Vote because you love the least of these, not because you're afraid of them. And in this week, when you enter into the kingdom, when you go out on the vision quest in prayer and meditation, lift up your eyes so that you can see things from a higher perspective, from God's perspective. And remember that regardless of what you see with your human eyes, you can declare as strongly as Bartimaeus did, "Teacher, help me to see." When you're in fear and worry, go into prayer and say, "Teacher, help me to see. Help me to see what I'm not seeing. Help me to see what it is that you're seeing." And remember, regardless of what you see with your human eyes, God is with you, always and in all ways. Namaste.